An Arizona couple unfortunately made the mistake of taking a drug that's known as chloroquine because they heard Donald Trump talking about how it's a possible treatment for coronavirus. Now, tragically, this couple living in Arizona really did suffer the consequences of listening to someone who has no medical expertise. The man unfortunately died soon after taking the drug, and his wife was in critical condition. Reporters did speak to her to kind of get a sense of what encouraged them to take this drug. And we'll show you that video in just a minute. But before we do, I think it's important for you all to see the kind of statements that Trump made about this drug, chloroquine.
I'm probably more of a fan of that than maybe than anybody. But I'm a big fan, and we'll see what happens. Look, it may work and it may not work. And I agree with the doctor, what he said. May work, may not work. I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. Let's see if it works. It might and it might not. I happen to feel good about it, but who knows? I've been right a lot.
So chloroquine came up quite a bit during his press conferences. And the problem is chloroquine worked based on some anecdotal evidence. There have been 2 studies done. They were limited in scope. And honestly, the study that people like Trump keep referring to was done out of France. They tested 26 patients. The treatment had a 4% mortality rate. And then after the people who passed away from being part of this, this trial, 3 out of the 26 went to the intensive care unit because of complications, and 1 person couldn't tolerate the medication. So it did work on a few of the people that were part of that study, but the results clearly needed to be tested more. They needed to do an expanded trial on this. So he keeps referring to this anecdotal evidence, and that is not strong evidence to encourage people to take a drug. The second issue is that what he was referring to is known as hydroxychloroquine. And so that is a tablet that's used to treat malaria. And that is also the drug that was used in this study that I was referring to earlier. But the couple took a different version of the drug known as chloroquine phosphate, which is used to kill parasites in like fish tanks. And so that's what made it even more dangerous for the couple. And unfortunately, the husband died. The wife is still alive, luckily, and NBC caught up with her to hear what she has to say. Let's just take a quick look at that video.
Did you see the president's press conference? Where did you hear about?
Yeah, we saw his press conference. It was on a lot, actually.
And then what? Did you seek out chloroquine?
I had it in the house because I used to have koi fish.
And then one more video because she talks about how she really trusted Trump and encourages people to avoid doing that.
But, they kept saying that it was approved for other things, and, Trump kept saying it was, basically pretty much a cure.
What would be your message to the American public?
Oh my God, don't take anything. Don't believe anything. Don't believe anything the president says and his people, because they don't know what they're talking about. And call your doctor. I mean, this is a heartache I'll never get over.
So there's 2 different problems here, right? So now some Republicans are saying, wow, they took the wrong chloroquine. If you drink the stuff made to clean out parasites from fish tanks, of course you're going to die. Well, there's some truth to that. Don't just go and take random stuff that appears to have the same word in it without consulting your doctors. They weren't even sick. They were doing it because they heard Trump say it. And so don't do that. So on the other hand, does that mean that what Trump did isn't wrong? No, it's very wrong. Listen to one part she said in there where he said it was already approved. And he did. He talked about, the FDA sped this up. Normally they take a long time, but this one, it's, already in great shape. No, it makes it sound like it was already approved when it has not been approved. It makes it sound like it's a cure when right now there is no cure. In fact, Trump also said that it was, quote, one of the biggest game changers in the history of medicine. Okay. And that's crazy talk. Look, this chemical had potential to work when the SARS epidemic broke out, which is similar to this epidemic, but it only worked in a petri dish. And when they brought it to humans, it didn't work as well. So,
Right.
and so any person that knows a thing about science or medicine, I mean, as little as we know, right? We know that just because it worked in a petri dish doesn't mean it works in humans, and doesn't mean it's been tested well enough with control studies, et cetera, for you to go tell the nation as the leader of the country that it's one of the greatest breakthroughs in medicine and it's going to come save the day. Is that going to mislead people? Of course it's going to mislead people. And it's going to lead to some people doing what this couple did.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, you know, there was a lot of outrage by people who think it's unfair to pin this on Trump. But remember, he's the president of the United States. He's the one who is telling panicked Americans that there's this promising drug that can save their lives and potentially end the pandemic. And this is the problem with having, you know, Trump do this type of messaging. And even though he's surrounded by experts who try to correct the record, like Anthony Fauci did correct the record. He did his best, right? But what's going to happen if Trump makes those types of statements? Every major news organization is going to pick up those statements and they're going to play it over and over and over again. And who knows if anyone is actually going to see the interview that Anthony Fauci did, where he said, no, this is based on anecdotal evidence. We need to do more testing. This is dangerous. Like, who knows if people are going to see that? What they are going to see is what the president said. And so he doesn't really ever think about the gravity of what he says. He doesn't really consider how much of an influence, unfortunately, he has over people. And especially when people start feeling desperate, especially older people who know that they have a higher death rate if they contract this virus. They hear that type of message, and yeah, if they're panicking, they'll try anything. So he doesn't take any responsibility for anything. We know that, and that's what makes this so devastating.
Yeah, and look, he's got an extra responsibility because his supporters have two more layers of stupid. And I'm being serious. So if they see him in a press conference saying it's a miracle drug, and they hear Dr. Fauci, who has a lifetime of work in this, saying, no, it's just anecdotal evidence. Well, normal smart people, non-Trump supporters, are going to believe Dr. Fauci and not Trump because he's a doctor and a scientist and spent his life on this. But Trump supporters will find that to be a laughable proposition. A scientist? Well, of course that's not going to be true. He's probably one of those people who believes in the hoax of climate change or something. They're going to believe Trump over a scientist or a doctor every single time. So since Trump knows that, he's got to be even more careful. But of course, he's less careful. And so you've got folks ready and willing to listen to him in the first place. That's a potential problem. And then second of all, you got these guys who, if Trump says, hey, listen, this Coca-Cola is a wonder drug. What is it? Hydro Coca-Cola? Yeah, whatever. Coca-Cola. It's great. It's great. It's going to save you. They'll all immediately think it's Coca-Cola. They're not going to have a conversation about Hydro Coca-Cola. They're all going to pour Coke all over themselves. And, and they listen to every word he says. So if you're a cult leader and people take your word as gospel, you should be a little bit more careful with your words.